before, by the way.
It doesn't.
Like that wasn't. Have you ever heard of low tier? No. I'm not gonna say this. So someone had me say that because they. You know what? It's okay.
Okay, let's go on to the next video, because I want to talk about more gaming shit, and I should probably I'm not blocking the guy who's currently speaking. I'm just gonna go behind Blackbird.
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. Oh, it's muted.
There's a couple of things that are really. What do you think of $100 plus games? So there's a couple of things that are really interesting about this. Back in the day, a Super Nintendo game was $69.95. That's how much Secret of Mana cost when it first came out. Let's go pull this up. Inflation calculator. And what year did Secret of Mana launch? August 6, 1993. And we're gonna go from
August. Do you know what Secrets of Mana is? Because I have no idea.
Nope.
Okay.
It's an old game.
Okay, well, I guess that's fair.
August 1993, and we'll go to April of 2024. And we're going to say $69.95. If you were to buy that Super Nintendo game today, in today's currency, it'd be $151.47. That would be the cost. Dramatically higher, right? But the reason they were so expensive back then is because of physical distribution. That's the reason. We don't have that anymore.
Actually, let me ask you a question before he continues. What is your thought on game pricing right now?
Well, let's just say I don't agree with a lot of it.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think companies should be charging for $70. They should not be charging $70 for games. Reason is, they don't even up the quality of them. They're the same qualities we've been getting. They're just $70 now, and it's like, why? Like, we should probably be getting more for spending another $10 on these games. And with how Ubisoft is treating their games, I'm gonna be honest. Eventually, you're just gonna overprice it to the point no one's gonna buy it. I saw this and I didn't think it's that fair. I didn't think it's a fair comparison. Really? Hey, Blackbird.
Yeah?
I kind of want to bring in Ray to kind of explain that point, because I'm curious about why he thinks that.
I mean, by all means.
Ray, do you want to explain yourself? Because I'm very curious why you think this. Explain yourself. Justify to the imp court. Or is it dog court or imp court? I don't care.
The heck, dog wisdom.
Dog wisdom. I'll sum it up in 2 points. Okay. What are your 2 points of wisdom? But yeah, freaking. Oh yeah, Blackbird, do you have water?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Gotta make sure you got something on you. You gotta keep the thing going, the mouth moving.
Yes.
One, developers are far more skilled and more numerous today. Two, back then when you had to take away more than time to QA/QC because there was no after-fact patches on similar code sets. You know what? I will agree to that. But, counterpoint to that. You can update the game, so that defeats one of the points, because think about it this way. You had to do more Q&A, and that's probably why it was more expensive back then. But that means it gets cheaper, not more expensive as it goes on. And the more numerous means we should still be getting at least somewhat decent quality, but we're getting stuff like Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. I wouldn't consider that quality, even when you have 1,000 developers working on a game like that. You know? Just because you have numbers, and just because you have to do longer Q&A and stuff, you know, doesn't mean you should be charging its price. It impacts the value proposition, in my point. It does, in fact, impact the value proposition, because with more numerous staff, you could probably have to charge a decently higher thing for this, that, and the other. But the problem is this. I don't even think they're charging for that anymore. I just think they're overcharging. Like, let's be honest. Why did they raise it to $70? Was it because they got more staff? No. They keep laying off their staff in record numbers. And I'm not talking about one company. Most companies are laying off their staff. Is it because they're increasing the quality of the game, making it better? No, we're still getting shit pumped out at record rates. Like you get stuff like Call of Duty, Battlefield 2042. Then you get stuff like Suicide Squad, which I've been mentioning just because of how bad it was, and half the other games that came out that year. Like, last year was literally just a train wreck of, like, bad AAA games and fantastic... Well, this year's actually been a trek of bad AAA games like the Skull and Bones from Ubisoft and just really good indie games. It is a $60 game, then same quality as a modern $70 game. I'd wager games back then are higher quality on average. That's my pro. The value was better. Because, let's be honest, you had more fun playing the older games than you would this game, the games that are coming out now. And, hell, even with getting rid of, like, employees, the price should come down at that point. With getting rid of enough employees, you don't have to pay them that much. Even then, you'd still be able to come down with the price. They don't keep down the price, they just keep raising it and raising it. So, yeah, it's just... I think they're just generally overcharging via games. But I'll get to a point to that later, actually. Ow, motherfucker trash boat. Hello. Let's continue.
Oh yeah, the person who made me do the pro tip.
Yeah. Let's continue, though.
You don't have to make a cartridge. You don't have to put it on a store shelf. You don't have to physically ship it. You don't have to do any of that. We have digital distribution. It costs nothing. I have sold tens of thousands of copies of Heartbound, and it has cost us nothing. So when we're looking at this versus that, it doesn't make sense. We can't even make a comparison there. Steam still takes 30%? No, they don't. When I make a Steam key, and that key is for a $10 game, and then I sell that on Humble Bundle, what is the percentage that Steam takes from me? 0%. Steam only takes 30% of the sales you have on the Steam platform. Only on the Steam platform. Further than that, if you have trading cards for your game, which you always do, you make those yourself. Very easy. Whenever one of those sells between one player and another, there's a community market fee. Steam gives the developer the community market fee. That ain't 30%. That's a lot less than 30%. Depending on how you strategize your sales, it's dramatically less than 30%. And Steam does not charge you for the distribution of your patches or the game itself outside of that 30% cut. Isn't that literally pennies, though? No, no. Very funny. So the way that I look at this right now is this doesn't make sense. We live in a time of digital distribution, and the way that I see sales of games is like this. If it's $1, people see it as shovelware. If it's $3, they see it as an arcade game. $5 is a premium.
I'm gonna be honest, usually if I see a game on sale, it's for $1. I at least look at it, just because sometimes it's not always shovelware. I think this is a bit of a subjective area, but I'll let it continue.
Arcade game. $10 is an indie game. $20 is a premium indie game. Anything anywhere from 10 to 20 is a premium indie game. $40 is a day game. $60 is AAA. And anything 70 or above is a scam. That's the general way that people...
I mean, I agree, but holy shit, just flat out saying it, holy crap. I think it's perspective at this point. You know what? Probably. I think it is perspective at this point, but I think the problem I have more than anything is that it's technically right. Like, let's be honest. $5, it's an indie game. $10, decent indie game. 20, you know, as it goes up in price, you expect more and more from it. But $70? What game right now that you have played or have bought has justified the $70 price range rather than a $60 price range? Like, Blackburn, do you have any games that you bought that you thought where it should have been $60 instead of $70?
No, because I've never bought a game over $70.
Really?
Yep.
I guess that's fair. That's fair.
I don't justify the price, and I'll die on that sword.
That's fair.
And the only times I've been given games like that is if it's been gifted to me. And even then, I don't think they're worth the price tag. Like, I'm trying to think of a $70 game that I might have bought, and the only game I can think of is maybe all the DLCs combined for Dead by Daylight, maybe. And even then, half of those I just use the in-game currency for.
I think it's up to...
So it doesn't even count.
When it hits 61 plus, I start squinting. Yeah, that's fair.
I just
If it
do
ain't,
not
I'll
play.
say it.
It's not worth it.
The only game I think I truly have bought that was $70 that I think should have been $60 was Ghost of Tsushima. Because I like the game and they brought it to PC, but Sony charges $70 now as their average. Pisses me the fuck off. If it ain't on sale, I ain't want it. That's understandable. I mean, I don't usually buy games unless they're on sale too. But like, when it comes to like certain games, I will go the extra mile just because I think the value is there. But I do that rarely. I mean rarely. Like, I'm gonna be honest. I got the Elden Ring DLC and I got the freaking Dawn Trail DLC. I would rather buy those twice than I would buy a new Battlefield, basically. Unless I wanted a game, I'll buy it price. That's fair. But I think this whole, like, how he rates it is subjective. Honestly, I think a really good indie game is around $30. $40 is should be a fantastic indie game. 10 to 20.
No,
Really?
I gotta disagree with you, Sai.
Really?
An indie game with like 5 developers that's been made good will make their money back with $20.
That's fair.
Okay? If you go to 30, they'll be living well off.
Oh yeah.
All right? And if you go above that, it just is ridiculous. Like, for example, I have like 20 clown emotes for my review of RimWorld, basically being like Tynan's greedy. Because Tynan, that game, I mean, he started off by using Prison Architect assets. Like, it was really bare bones, and then it developed from there. He's got millions of dollars, and yet he still charges more and more and more for the DLCs for the expansion packs. And it just is not, the game doesn't have enough to it. Like, RimWorld doesn't have enough to it to justify that. Like, you have to micromanage that colony, and you get screwed over by RNG. And then you just have a bunch of stuff, and everything takes too much time in that game.
Yeah. Like,
so I'd say, and the thing is, Tynan, I think, made RimWorld, what, $35? So that was already really incredibly expensive, in my opinion, for his small team. He's only made that game. You take AAA titles with hundreds of people on it. Well, if you've got hundreds of people who have bought into it and are playing it, people would rather just a little bit of a business backstory for you is recurring business is how you make money. Battle passes, things that you can just easily squat out to make people make money.
Yeah.
It's easier to just build upon what you have than to make something new. And so for most AAA games now, they would rather just not make anything new than charge $70 for a AAA title. And even then, the AAA titles, they aren't even that good.
I guess that's understandable. My point, like Raze would say, I think at games at $70 price point for me is a point where I don't see them as a splurge. It's a price point where I think I'm going to get a $70 of value out of this. And I'm gonna be honest, as of recently, I don't think anyone's been getting any amount of value from the $70 games.
Yeah.
Like,
they're just not worth it.
On
And so
average.
the only way you can counter that is by not buying from them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even then, the devs won't take that as a hint. They'll take it as, I need to shut down this game studio because it flopped.
Yeah.
what happened with Arcane Studios, the people behind Prey, was they made Redfall. Redfall was a multiplayer game, which Arcane is not known for their multiplayer games. They're known for Dishonored. They're known for Prey. They're known for like those types of games, stealth, immersive sims. But instead, what they get is they make a 4-player
vampires
survival shooter, pretty much.
Yeah.
And not even a good one at that, because that's not what they were known for. Most people left Arcane because that was the direction that they had to push. So, that being said, where is this $70 price point coming from? Is it coming from... And Redfall, by the way, wasn't Redfall $70 too?
Yeah, I think it was. I think so. I'm not sure.
Where is this coming from? Greed. Greedy investors.
I'm gonna be
honest.
Greedy
developers.
I don't even think it's that.
What do you think it is then?
I think it's to fix their fuck ups. I think the $70 price point is not to basically say we're adding value, or it's not because of inflation. I think the $70 price point is because as of recently, a lot of games haven't been meeting their price points. Let's take this. Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and a few others. Skull and Bones, like the freaking pirate game by Ubisoft. A few of the Assassin's Creeds, like
it's Electronic Arts.
Electronic Arts. No, I'm talking about
all these publishers that are greedy. Ubisoft is greedy.
No, yeah, Ubisoft is greedy. But my point is, all of these games that I have mentioned were considered financial failures. They did not make money.
Yeah, because they were trash games that were way too overpriced.
I wouldn't say that about Final Fantasy, and
yeah, I'd say that about Final Fantasy. I'm gonna have an unpopular opinion here, and I'm gonna tell you I haven't played a Final Fantasy game since I was a teen because
thank you for the follow.
There's just no sustenance
Smash
to them.
_ or pass just
there's
followed.
Not enough there's not enough difference to them for my tastes.
So for me, I will disagree, mostly because I was really excited about it. The only reason I didn't get it is because it was an exclusive to PlayStation 5.
Yeah, and PlayStation 5, I'm not going to buy a Sony product.
Exactly.
That's why I said they're not worth it, Sai.
No,
is that whenever you... First off, like, I hate Sony.
I
hate Sony. I don't like them. I don't like how invasive they are.
It was a... tied to the PS5.
And that in of itself makes it terrible. Is that it's hamstring by being tied to the PS5. Redfall itself wouldn't have been terrible and would have had development put into it if it wasn't forced by Gearbox to make into that genre and it had $70 of a price tag on it. Like,
that's fair.
Like, if there's so many... Imagine someone made a great game. And then, several months after it being released, you had to tie it to the PlayStation Network. I wonder what the community's reaction would be to that. And why it would be.
Well, the thing I wanted to say, Blackbird, not to cut you off, I just really want to finish the point I was trying to make, is the reason I say this, and I'm pointing out these games as financial failures, is because as soon as these games' financial failures have been reported, you have seen, like, also the games that never came out, like, apparently PlayStation has canceled around, like, 12 different live service games they were developing, and all this other shit, but all the financial reporting I've seen from a lot of games have been just awful, wasting millions upon millions and millions gone. EA lost $100 million due to that one, like, Magic Sorcerer FPS they made from their new studio they made, and they basically had to shut that studio down because they fucking bombed, basically. But I think they're raising prices to appease the shareholders by saying, hey, even though this game flopped, by raising prices, we still made the money back. And you can see this in the console sales. PlayStation 5, as it's gone on, has gotten more expensive, not less.
Yeah, because
Online services got
because they're
more
relying
expensive.
on whales to use it.
Yeah, but that's my thing. Eventually, I'm gonna say this: if the trend I'm seeing continues of game companies failing and then trying to cover up their failings by raising prices on everything, eventually they're gonna have what I call the Disneyland effect, where you outprice normal people and then you start hurting on money. Because eventually, when you only have whales, whales will eventually not have enough money to keep you afloat. Because they can keep you afloat for a while. I'm not saying they can't keep you afloat. I'm saying they ain't gonna keep you afloat or get you the money you need to increase your revenue as you need to impress your shareholders, as well as a normal, average, everyday Joe who's very happy about a product. Let's take Helldivers, for instance. Before Sony did its thing, everyone had a great game with great content, with a decent price, and you know what happened? That game shot up. It was one of the most, bought games on Steam. Everyone was talking about it. It was going on. It was the talk of the town for so many months. My boss at work played it. Like, everyone knew about this. It wasn't just a small thing. When you give the customer what they want at a decent price, you make more money than you can make from a whale. But if all you're relying on is whales to kind of keep you afloat and trying to look pretty for the shareholders, it's the advent of trying not to take a hit on your revenue and avoiding it causes more damage. And I think that's what's going on, in my opinion. So yeah, that at least that's what's going on in my head. What do you think about that, Blackburn?
Well, you heard my thoughts.
Yeah.
It's just greedy folk.
I think it is greedy folk. It's driven by greed, both prices, points, exclusive status, and crap like the PSN. Yeah, that's fair. Let's continue and see what he thinks about it.
People feel about games that I've seen so far. Like, this is the limit. Anything above that, and people hate you. Whether they feel it's worth it or not. The problem is this. The ones saying this, unfortunately, don't matter. As awful as that is. Because there's multitudes of people that are just buying the games anyway. An insane number of people that don't take any part in online discourse, don't take any part in talking about $70 game, don't take any part in any of this, and just buy the $100+ copies every time. You will find very quickly that the double down versions of games, instead of the $70 version, the $110 version, you'll find that these ones sell more than these ones. Almost every time. And if it is a $70 game, it'll likely have MTX in it that will end up making it sell more than this every time. The reason that the business model works this way is because people spend money on it. This is normal business for the games industry, and I reject the shit out of it. Why do you think our game is $10 and it won't have a sequel, and it won't have a prequel, and it won't have chapters, and it won't have DLC, and it won't have microtransactions? That's why it's $10, because I hate this business model. I hate it. I think it's shit, and I don't want to perpetuate it, even if it would make me more money, because it's not good for the industry. So I can't convince people to stop buying games like this. I can just stop selling games in that way and succeed in spite of that. So are sequels bad? No, but if you're making episodic content, it's not good for the game a lot of the times. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're...
What do you think of
Wow, sounds like RimWorld. If only RimWorld was made by Thor. That would be great. I'm so happy that I spent thousands of hours on a game that doesn't give a shit about me.
You sound salty.
I am salty.
Let's get
Very annoyed with Titan. I'm never going to be like, ah, yes, this was correct.
Alright, let's continue.
Base game is $10, and you release a DLC for $5, and then you release a DLC for $5, and you release a DLC for $5. As a player, you bought it for $10, and a new DLC comes out 3 months later. It's only $5, so you buy it, and then another one 3 months later. Well, it's only $5, so you bought it, and then another one 3 months later. It's only $5, so you buy it, right? You just keep doing this. Now, let's say that you tell your friend, hey man, this game is really good, And your friend's like, oh, how much was it? And you're like, oh, it's $10. And your friend goes to look at it and he goes, that's not $10. Now you get a $25 game. So new players are de-incentivized from jumping in. But old players feel like they got good value and they didn't pay that much, except they're both paying the same amount. It's a marketing strategy that preys on your inability to do math or inability to assign value over time. That's the issue. So like, not a fan of it. Really not a fan of it. If I'm going to release new content for Heartbound, I'm just going to patch it into the game, like I always have. No reason not to. What are your thoughts on expansions then for games? I only like expansions for live service games a lot of the times. Like, I really only like expansions for live service games. I don't like expansions a lot of the time outside of that. I think they're kind of gross. Like, if you're doing a single player game, the only time I'd say an expansion makes sense is like if you're adding another campaign to it. Live service game does make sense for expansions because that ends up being kind of a good deal. But yeah, it's pretty rare that single player games get expansions that make sense. It's pretty rare.
I'm gonna be honest. What do you think about expansions? Because I think they could be good.
It depends on how the price and how much they add. I've just went on a rant about Tynan. What do you think I feel about expansions?
Most of them are shit, but then again, sometimes you get expansions like Cyberpunk's, like, you know, fuck it. What am I blanking on? But you get like Cyberpunk's expansion, which I think is pretty cool. So I think it's like ebb and flows.
Eh.
Eh,
It depends on the company.
I guess that's a
Like,
fair
if there was
point.
an expansion for Helldiver that added in... Like, here's an example. Patching it into a game, that's the correct way of doing it. Because if you have a game like Helldivers, and it's constantly... Imagine if the new weapons were all just expansions and microtransactions. Imagine if every new one, the game would die.
Yeah, that's fair.
And, but it all ties back to greed.
Oh, yeah.
Every single point Thor is making, it ties back to the current business model is about making money. I don't think that I should be supporting that industry. So I'm going to do it this way. I think that that's pretty cool of him.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's fair. I say let's continue then.
Yep.
Move on away.
What about the infamous Oblivion Horse Armor DLC? I think it's ass. Like, obviously. Not a fan of that. Risk of Rain? Risk of Rain wasn't an expansion. That was a totally new game. We had Risk of Rain to Risk of Rain 2. It's a completely different video game. That's fine. What about Vampire Survivors? I actually don't like Vampire Survivors. I didn't like the fact that they went from a $3 game and then sold millions of copies and then made it $5. Like, why? Why did they do that? There's no reason for that shit. Makes no sense. Bro gets mad from $2 game to $5 game? Yeah. Do you know why? Because there's no reason for that. If you have a $3 game and it sells millions of copies, and then you change that price to $5, you have a small team that has more money than they'll ever need, and you've changed the price to $5 after it becomes popular. If I took my game that was $10 and I made it $12 after it became popular, would you feel good about that? You'd hate it. Just like I do. It's like, because there's no reason for it. The only time that we ever have to change prices is when there's dramatic shifts in the valuation of individual currencies. Currency exchange rates is the only time we have to raise prices, because sometimes currency exchange rates go crazy, which is exactly what happened with Argentina, right? Like, that sucks. There's nothing we can do about it at that point. Where, like, suddenly, like, a currency just inflates to and is not worth anything anymore. Like, we have to take action. There's nothing we can do about it. That's the only time that I think that's
actually, I want to mention something. So, back to PlayStation. Remember how they fucked over the rest of the world, basically?
With Helldivers?
Yeah, with Helldivers. By requiring the
Yes.
PSN thing, I'm just realizing, did they do local prices? I don't know if they do. Because if they don't do local prices, that means they've costed a bunch of people a pretty penny. And not only did they cost them a pretty penny, they locked them out of the game. Because, like, most currencies, like in Brazil, has a different currency. It costs different to pay for them, that and the other. Like, I'm wondering if they did do, like, different payments or anything else like that. I'm curious how they did it, if that makes sense. Because I know the way Thor does it is basically, like, he, like, lowers it depending on region to make it affordable in those regions. And I'm like, dang, that's smart. But I don't know if any other companies do that.
No, of course not. Why do you think it gets pirated so often?
You know what? I
Why do
think
you
that's fair.
piracy is such a thing? And that's the thing. Online, you can't say, "Hey, piracy." That's pretty interesting.
That's pretty pog. Are you cringing right now?
No.
Okay, well, yeah, I was just curious because I don't think they do it, but that's the whole thing. Let's continue.
That's the only time, and it's a global finance issue. Yeah, global finances go wacky. Bingo. Price your game in line with the gold standard? No, that's not really how that works. The way that you have to price your game, no matter what, man, is based on people's expendable income. You're making an entertainment piece. That's what that is. It's an entertainment piece. People don't need to buy your game. They don't have to. So you have to price it based on people's expendable income inside of that area. Disposable income is what you're targeting. What about board member bonuses? Gross. Yeah, it's gross. No, you don't have to buy it. I price ours based on a Big Mac. It's about a Big Mac and a half. Yeah.
Mac?
You want people to
Oh,
buy...
I want a Big
what is
Mac.
this? You want people to buy your product? Make it affordable. Bingo. Yes. Make it affordable for each region, too. Always make it affordable for each region. You have to think about what the economics are of each region that you're selling the game in. And you have to think about specifically how much disposable income people in that region have. Yeah, regional pricing. Always regional pricing. Always. And then you price it appropriately based on that. It's very easy. It just takes a little bit of effort, right? Are you in favor of microtransactions in the game if the game is free? I'm in favor of microtransactions if they are cosmetic in nature and nothing else. There's no reason for it.
Really?
There's no reason for anything else. Cosmetics
Yeah, of
only.
course.
How do you make the art for your game? Shay makes all the art and animation for Harbin. I do the technical art, which is particle effects, shadows, lighting, stuff like that. Sony priced Helldivers to 0 in some reason? No, they didn't price Helldivers to 0 in some regions. They made it unpurchasable in some regions. Those are two very different things. Yeah. No, 0 would be free. Lol, same thing? No, 0 would be free. They
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I think that was that video. I think that was just mostly discussing about the pricing one that really got my attention because I'm like, I don't know. I think they price it pretty poorly, and how they keep increasing prices, and I keep hearing rumors that PlayStation wants to actually increase the average game price to $100 and all that stuff. I
Well,
just
yeah, of course. They don't want to bleed you for all you got.
Oh yeah, but the problem is that I see it as a bit of a problem that's gonna implode themselves. Is that in order to prevent a hit, like in order to prevent a financial hit now, they're pushing it down the line, and these keep stacking. Like eventually,
thing
you're just
is,
gonna
we
have to
don't
take
live
the
in
damn
a-
hit.
We don't live in a socialist environment where
Oh, I know.
we don't live in a socialist environment where the price of something is controlled.
Yeah,
Supply and demand is a lie. Supply and demand is not true because at a certain point, people will get so angry that they'll just start stealing it. You see?
you know what? Yeah,
So, if you make something so overpriced that only a certain amount of people can get it, people will just start stealing it. Like, the
Yeah.
supply and demand only works in a utopia. In a place where no one commits crime because nobody needs to commit crime.
I'd say supply and demand does exist, but there's also a factor of
But it doesn't
Wait.
because piracy exists, Sai. People
No.
will just illegally get a game.
no.
If
So
they can't
no,
afford it.
no. My thing is supply and demand exists, but they have a caveat of you supply what they demand. So everyone demands a game. They want a good game. They demand the game. You supply that demand. But when your demand or when you supply is like overcharged or like
No.
No.
Supply is you're silence. You don't get why the price is important in supply and demand economics. When you overcharge something, it creates a sense of scarcity.
yeah,
You're bottlenecking the actual supply.
Yeah.
There's no actual supply online
Yeah.
because you can just infinitely copy a code over
True.
and over and over. As long as it exists somewhere, you've got it on the internet.
hmm
So price is the only way that you create supply and you create a supply. So if you
Mhm.
set it at $70, you're artificially creating scarcity, and everyone realizes that and realizes it's bullshit, which is why they just steal it, which is why they just pirate it.
True.
And I'm not advocating, by the way, I gotta say this, I'm not advocating for piracy.
Oh
But I am
yeah.
advocating for people to be less greedy. Otherwise, guess what? Consequences of your actions
Well,
happen.
my thing is, I don't see this as not being supply and demand. I see it as the supply, like basically demand. The supply basically demanding in a way. My brain's trying to word this correctly. Sorry. The supply basically bottlenecking itself and asking more from the demand, and the demand
Well,
going like, "Hey, we don't want that anymore." The demand decreases as you bottleneck the price. As you do that, the demand goes down, and thus,
that's what
the-
you'd think would happen, but it
But-
doesn't because of people who are rich just buying it anyways.
yeah, the people who are rich buy it anyways. And then you have the people who are pirate it, which pirating is usually what, like a very small percentage, like barely.
No, it's
people.
pretty large, just not in America.
It's like
It's pretty large in countries where
oh yeah,
where the price is just really, really poor. For example, in China, in Thailand, in India, in Brazil,
yeah.
in Colombia, in Venezuela, in the I don't know, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is some no. What's the model of America that's over in Africa? I can never remember the name, but they have modeled their entire system around.
Piracy is the big C in the big C. Yeah, we're talking about piracy and all this stuff. And my thing is, I don't see it as not a supply and demand. I think it's the supply being so scarce and so like artificially unavailable that people don't see the need in buying it, so they just take. It's not really. It's not saying supply and demand doesn't exist. It's one of those. The supply is basically just bottlenecking, and thus they'd rather steal it than pay for it. So in a weird way, it's like a corruption of supply and demand. That's how I see it. It's a bastardization of supply and demand. You're not supplying it because you don't want to supply it because you're greedy, and the demand doesn't want to give you any money more because you're not supplying it fairly. And when you both do that, you both end up failing. Because when you pirate, the people who are making the game don't get the money they need to make another game. And when you bottleneck the prices too high, you outprice the very customers you're trying to sell it to. In a weird way, by raising prices too much, you fuck over the people who give you the money you need to survive. And by pirating stuff, you still undercut the company you want to support, or at least the games you want to have made. So I think it's really a kind of a toxic situation. Blah. But that's how I see it. I think it's like a stabbing in the back for both parties. Like, the rich are stabbing you in the back, and then you're stabbing them in the back, and then everyone's just bleeding out dead. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, that's not how it works.
How does it work?
Is you stab someone who's rich and they've got enough lawyers to make it to where you're in prison for a very long time.
True.
There's no...
They stab you.
If someone steals something, it really only depends on the society for how much it cares.
Yeah, but that's still
and if you can
harming.
If you can make people not care
Mm-hmm.
or think bad upon something, it's easier to get away with. For example, once again, the way that we've been raised to think is, stealing is wrong.
Yeah, I think stealing is wrong.
I think stealing is wrong too, but then I realized that there's not all good people in the world.
Yeah.
Robin Hood, the story of Robin Hood.
Is stealing
Steal
from the rich.
Evil. No, not stealing from the rich. Stealing from evil rich. Remember that in Robin Hood's day, serfs existed.
Yeah.
Slaves, pretty much, that you paid very little and took all of their crops and you got to eat like a king. Robin Hood took from bad people.
Yeah.
Okay? And gave to the people who needed it, the poor, the serfs themselves.
Oh, yeah.
That is in my opinion, a noble cause.
True.
Now, of course, we're talking about video games here.
Yeah, that's...
We're not talking about food, but at the same time, there's more to life than just working and then sleeping and eating.
So,
All right, we live in a day and age where people
Shushian,
want to
if I'm
enjoy
reading,
life.
yeah, Shushian says, I see games as some sort of painting. You buy those paintings to support the artist and help them make more art. And I agree. In a decent like time, that's how it works. The problem is this. The painter is getting so greedy that he's charging you an exorbitant amount of price for one of his simplest paintings. Like it's a red dot on like on a board, basically. Doesn't seem worth the price. And in order to still have the thing that you want, either you'll find a company that has a game similar to that and you just support that, or some people just steal it. And my thing is, to curb the stealing and to actually make a decent profit, and actually more profit than you would probably make than like stealing, you'd have to decrease the price, in my opinion. Like,
what do you mean in your opinion? That's how it works, Sai, is if you want people not to steal, you make it affordable.
you make it affordable.
Another thing, and
I think it's
that's why people want you to think stealing is wrong. Stealing from people who aren't deserving of it, that's wrong.
I think stealing in general, and at least in my opinion, stealing stuff in general is wrong. But my thing is this. It's easy to justify it, but the moment you're in a situation where, say, I'm not rich, and then people go like, oh, you're rich, because it depends on your point of view. Because some people just believe if you're rich in general, you're an asshole and you need to be stolen from, basically. Like, it's a whole thing.
Well, that's why you're not supposed to see everything in black and white.
Well, yeah,
that's
but
why you need to judge people on a person-to-person basis.
True, but the problem is most people, in my opinion, don't. I don't think most people judge. Well, I think a lot of people judge with a gray view, but a lot of people judge with a very black and white view. And when those people are the ones calling the shots, God help the people who they see as black. That sounded bad.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh.
What the fuck? The hell?
Well, I guess I'm getting canceled finally. Holy shit.
Pretty much.
Is it ripoff? I'm just saying, when it comes to gaming, I think the executives, and I'm not talking about like the owners of the companies, I'm talking of like the lead directors, the developers, in order to probably save their own skins and the companies they work for, they up the prices of the games when they take a financial hit. And the companies themselves probably up the games on all their stuff to avoid a financial hit. Because the moment they report to the investors that, oh my gosh, that game didn't do well, well, next thing you know, people's heads are on the chopping blocks. Because you just lost the investor money. I honestly think the reason we're in a situation where games are getting as bad as they are is because all the game companies went public. I would have rather them have stayed private. I would have rather that. Because when it comes to investors, they get very antsy about anything. And the moment they lose any sort of money, they freak the hell out. Next thing you know, everyone's pulling out. Next thing you know, the company's in worse shape than ever. I honestly think that, at least the gaming industry-wise, when they went public, like a bunch of things like trading-wise, I honestly think they kind of doomed themselves to, like, in a sense, this kind of path, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I was like, I want to feel sorry for these poor bastards, but at the same time, they kind of brought it upon themselves. And